back with another episode of RC Audio Sports Vodcast. We're in season 2. This is episode number 7. We thank you for joining us. Coach Robert Villafranca. Haley will join us on Thursday and Friday night, so we'll see her then. And I, of course, am Bobby Mendez. We thank you for joining us on this evening. Lots to talk about. We're going to be talking about, of course, our streaming. We took care of some volleyball. We'll talk about volleyball, talk about some standings. We'll talk about what's coming up this upcoming Friday. And first and foremost, we want to make sure we thank all of our sponsors, Martinez and Associates, Rufio, Texas Revolution Youth Football and Cheer, Proper Realty, Vanessa G. Medina, Brooks, Rocking G Grill, Model Mortgage Plus, Superior Tax Service, Live from the South Side, J-Rod Video Production, and Harlandale ISD. We thank all of you for making this possible. On the vodcast today, we got some shout outs that we want to get going. Talk about 14 5A Division II football. That race is heating up. But we'll begin today's vodcast with some District 28 5A volleyball, where there's plenty of unfinished business with only 3 matches remaining, Coach. And speaking of volleyball, the matches remaining, before we get into those, let's talk about Tuesday's matches. We were witness to Harlandale's win over Eagle Pass win just the other night. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about some volleyball.
Sure. That was a very enjoyable game to stream. It was an important game for both Wynn and Harlandale. Wynn was hanging on by a thread, trying to keep from elimination. With Harlandale's victory on Tuesday night, that eliminated Wynn from the playoff contention. But it was just a very competitive match between those two teams. Natalie Garcia, we'll give her a shout out later, but she was our player of the game. And again, as we mentioned several times on the stream, it brings us a special joy to stream a game for Eagle Pass Win when they're in town, especially on a Tuesday night like we did. And sometimes it's kind of tough to make that trip from San Antonio to Eagle Pass, or from Eagle Pass to San Antonio during the week. I know they've got a lot of fans, and Eagle Pass Win community has always been very kind to us. They're very active on our social media, and the times that we've been to Eagle Pass, Coach Villaseñor and his staff have been very hospitable. So we were very happy to be able to do a stream for Win when they were in town. Besides Coach Villaseñor being hospitable, he's got some great restaurant recommendations, and he's never failed us on that. So thank you for that. But back to the match, Harlandale won that match in 3 straight sets, and they took the series sweep against Wynn, so they improved to 12-0, and they're still at the top of that division. And going on beyond the match that we streamed yesterday, Southwest defeated South San in 3 straight sets. As a matter of fact, all the volleyball matches last Tuesday were 3-set sweeps. So Southwest did that to South San 3-0, Medina Valley 3-0 against Southwest Legacy. And McCullum, a big win for the Cowboys, 3-0 set sweep against South Side.
Coach, of all those games on Tuesday night, which one of those was the ones that kind of what stood out the most to you?
I think the Southwest and South San, that was, the Harlandale and Wynn match, of course, had Harlandale sitting at the top, a big match for the Indians to stay on top of that race. But Southwest and South San, I think, to me, was the match of the night. It was the only match that put 2 top 4 teams against each other, and it kept South San's playoff hopes in the balance. They lost to Southwest, and Southwest was able to stay. They were able to keep pace with Harlandale. They're 2 games back, and 2 matches remaining. We've got a match on Friday and then one coming up on Tuesday. But they were able, at Southwest, with the victory, they still have a shot at a share of the district championship. And so I think that was a big one. And South San could have taken a big step towards claiming that final spot, but not being able to beat Southwest, really kept everything in the balance. So To me, Southwest and South San was the big one last night.
And it's got to be tough for Southwest and South San, especially if they were at South San. We all know how loud that gym can be. So I know that was probably an exciting game between those two, even though Southwest did end up beating South San 3 games to none. Harlandale to me was a pretty important game. And I know. Them staying undefeated is not the ultimate goal for them. The ultimate goal is to get into the playoffs and to have that quite possible back-to-back district championship. But in order for them to beat, they have to be in the conversation for district championship, and in order to complete an undefeated season, more than likely, they're going to have to beat those teams that they need to beat. Those they beat all the top teams. Of course, they've been undefeated in districts, but they are beating the team that they're supposed to beat as well. So
Well, they're they've 12-0. They beat them all, and Bob, that's an interesting point about the goals for Harlandale because they've won a share. It was 2006 and 2007 the last time a Harlandale team won back-to-back district championships. The Indians have set that goal for themselves all year long, a district championship. Here they are sitting at 12-0 and still have not claimed an outright championship. They have a share. That's really not the goal. The goal is an outright championship. Now they're sitting so close to 14-0. You got to know that that's part of their goal too, is to finish get that banner up there with that -0, not a -1. But nothing wrong with that. You don't want to take the field or a court with a team that's satisfied, and nothing wrong with having a couple of goals. Harlandale has to play a big game. We'll talk about that. Have a big game this Friday. We'll talk about that in a minute. But still plenty of goals, still plenty of checks on that checklist for the Indians, and nothing wrong with that. You hate to be
yeah,
satisfied.
and let's look at those standings right now. Harlandale is at the top. Of course, we mentioned they are 12-0, followed by Southwest 10-2, Medina Valley 9-3, and sitting at that fourth spot is South San at 6-6. But right underneath that is McCullum at 5-7. So you look at that standings there, and only four of them can make the playoffs. How safe are any of those six spots there, Coach?
Well, there actually, Bob, there's three of them that are secure as far as a dance invite, a playoff, an extended season, a playoff season. There are three teams that have secured playoff berths. Harlandale, Southwest, and Medina have all secured a playoff berth, but the seed themselves, the seed itself is still up for grabs. Harlandale, as we said earlier, has earned a share of the district championship, so they can do no worse than a co-championship. But of course, in a co-championship, that will come down to a flip of a coin most of the time as far as the seed goes. So they haven't secured the top seed yet. Southwest can finish first. They can finish second. They can finish third, depending on how they finish out their season against Harlandale on Friday and then Southwest Legacy next Tuesday. And Medina Valley has secured a spot. They can finish either second or third. They will finish no worse than third. So safe, as far as safe goes, secure playoff berths are safe for those three teams, but the seed has not yet been secured, and that's going to be settled over Friday and Tuesday. The team that's not safe among those top four is South San. They have not secured a playoff berth. They're one game ahead of McCullum with 2 games remaining, and they play each other on Friday. We'll talk about that one in a bit too. That game can be that fourth seed can be settled in that game, and I'm gonna let that one go. But it really has come down. I mean, literally, mathematically, it's come down to a race. It's 3 have secured, and 2 are left, still fighting to secure that final and fourth playoff spot for 28-5-8.
Yeah, and all we can say at this point right now is you've got to follow us on our social media,
Have to.
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, because you will put out that information. If you're not able to gather that information from anywhere else, at least you can come to RC Audio Sports and you'll get that information pretty quickly. So appreciate you, Coach, for always being able to have that information up for everyone in this district. So With all that, that leads up to this Friday's matchup because that's what you're going to be interested in. You're going to be interested in what's going to be happening coming up this week. So Friday, Harlandale is at Southwest. In my opinion, a big matchup. South San at McCullum. We just talked about the importance of that matchup as well. Medina Valley at Southside. It's going to be a big game for Medina Valley. And then you got Southwest Legacy at Eagle Pass Win. And Coach, again, as I mentioned, Harlandale at Southwest is going to be a big matchup. We'll have that information for you as far as results are concerned. But I know you've got plenty of opinion on what some of those big matchups are this week.
Well, Harlandale at Southwest, it's a Friday night, and we're streaming a football game that night. But we've got feelers out to all of our contacts, and we're going to do our best to keep our viewing audience informed on that game. But that's that one right there. Harlandale needs one more win or a Southwest loss to claim the district championship outright. And playing each other, of course, they can that bit of business can be taken care of on that night. But here's the deal: it's at Southwest, and you remember Harlandale had that odd schedule because of the renovations that were being done to the gym, and all of their non-district games and the first half of their district games were all played somewhere else. They were played away for Harlandale. Harlandale was on the road for all of those. Their first home game of the season was against Southwest, and you remember how loud that was. That was on a Tuesday night. It was on a non-football night, and that gym just got loud. So Southwest gets to repay the favor, and they'll be hosting Harlandale. This is the first, although Harlandale's had a bunch of games on the road, this is the first game that Harlandale's been on the road in a while. So they've got to get their bus mentality going again, and they've got to get their hostile environment mentality again. And Southwest is going to do all they can to create a hostile environment for the visiting Indians. For Southwest to claim a co-championship, this is a must-win for them. One Harlandale win or one Southwest loss, and it's an outright district championship for the Indians. But go ahead.
We'll certainly be paying attention to that. It's a big night for the Indians. They will district championship is involved. Continuing an undefeated season in district play is involved. So lots of things in the mix there for Harlandale. Hopefully they can keep their focus, especially as you mentioned, Coach, it being a road game. So that's going to be something that we're gonna watch. That's coming up this Friday. And again, I can't stress it enough to please make sure and follow us, RC Audio Sports, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and of course YouTube, where we do the actual streaming of the game. So it's been a fun week covering volleyball and talking about volleyball. Transitioning now into.
Come on. I got one more I want to talk about if you give me a minute.
Go ahead.
One more. South San and McCullum, that's the big one. That's the one that they're fighting for that last playoff berth. It's so this one is South San travels to McCullum. McCullum lost when they were in the South San gym. This time again, McCullum gets to repay the favor. And here's kind of the interesting part about, you talk about how stars align sometimes for your schedule. McCullum has shown that they can really put together a loud gym. Well, we've mentioned several times on this podcast in our streams how volleyball Tuesday nights are your loud nights, just simply because on Friday nights there's another game, there's a football game usually going on, and you have to share your student body, and there are a lot of groups of that student body that are involved in that football game. Your bands, your spirit groups, your ROTCs. So the big draw on a Friday night is the football game, and your Tuesday games, volleyball games, are much more likely to be rowdy. But to get to my point, McCullum football plays Thursday night, and we're streaming that one. So it's not a football night for the McCullum community on Friday, and you can expect that McCullum gym to be loud. McCullum to stand for their playoff hopes to stay alive, they must win this game. South San wins it, and the four seeds have been determined, or the four playoff berths have been awarded. So the only way McCollum can stay alive is by winning this game, and I'm going to tell you, I'm predicting a very loud and rowdy McCollum gym for that one, and should be a great environment. Medina Valley at Southside, Southwest Legacy at Wynn, two other great ball games, but I think those first two that we talked about are the games of Friday night.
Well, cue the suspense music because it's going to be very suspenseful until now and the end of Friday night to see what happens and what falls out after that shakeout in District 28 5A volleyball.
I'll
So,
put it this way. I'll put it this way, Bob. There's going to be some somersaults in McCollum on Friday. There'll be
oh,
some Olympic quality somersaults at McCollum.
we saw some of that. We saw the South San group do that. We saw Harlandale do that. We saw them at McCullum do that. So yeah, those are fun. And
Yeah.
when they go the whole entire length of the court, pretty impressive athleticism for those watching in the stands. So yeah, we'll again, like we mentioned, we'll keep the you up to speed on what's happening that Friday night. And coach, as you mentioned, Thursday night, we will be at Alamo Stadium, and it will be the McCullum Cowboys and the Jefferson Mustangs. And then Friday, we will be at Harlandale Memorial Stadium, where it's the Harlandale Indians hosting the Burbank Bulldogs. So, two exciting nights of high school football in District 14 5A Division 2. So as we transition into football now, that's where we're going to be Thursday and Friday. We will be joined by Haley Wilson, who will be back from her worldly travels all around the world. So we're just grateful that she's got a little stop here in San Antonio, so she could join us again. But let's talk about last Friday. We'll talk about those scores. I'll go in no particular order here. Highlands on top of Edison 12-7. Alamo Heights on top of Harlandale 48-0. Sam Houston over McCullum 21-19. Brack 22, Linear 19, Burbank 20, and Jefferson 14. Coach, we'll just get right into what we were witness to, which was the Sam Houston and McCullum game. Tough one for the McCullum Cowboys. They went back to back games, very similar type of styles or games. The week before that was a close game against Burbank, then against Sam Houston. You know, the things are happening for McCullum. They're able to get the ball into the end zone where it was maybe a little struggle in the past before, but they just have not been able to finish out the ball game.
Just last 2 weeks, they certainly have not, Bob. And as you said, very similar late game leads the week prior to Burbank, and then also Sam Houston. McCullum held a late game lead and just weren't able to hold on to seal the deal. But we were streaming that, and we both had this. We both had this feeling that Naquintus Brooks was only going to be contained for so long. I mean, he just looks like he can. Every time he touches the ball, he looks like he's just gonna break it. And McCullum did an excellent job of containing him for about 3 quarters. But in the fourth quarter, Quintus Brooks broke free a couple of times, and he scored a big touchdown in that game to put Sam Houston ahead for good. And just a tough loss for the Cowboys. But one thing I was noticing after I was putting up the scores this past week, uh, 4 of those 5 games were decided by a touchdown or less. Highlands wins by 5, Sam Houston wins by 2, Brack wins by 2 as well, and Burbank wins by 6. So a very competitive. Alamo Heights, of course, has been rolling through their district schedule, and their victory was a little bit greater than 6 over the Indians. But the other 5 games, very competitive games, and McCullum's had back to back. There have been a lot of them in the district season, but McCullum's had back to back tough games that they were not able to hold on to late game leads.
Yeah, McCullum. One of the things that they've struggled with in the past, right, is getting into the end zone, doing those kinds of things, in which they're doing now. They've got Justin Rodriguez, who is only a sophomore at quarterback, so it's a young team for the McCullum Cowboys, and they're having these growing pains right now. But as you mentioned, what I think is very important to note is that even though McCollum not at the end of the ball game is at the winning end of it, but they're in these ball games. They're a young team. They're learning how to play through adversity. And this is only something that they're only going to get better at in years to come. And we talk about Julian Roque, who is a beast with the football. He's got
Oh man,
some
oh yeah, I love
moves
you. Yeah,
that we have not seen in quite some time. He's hurdling over defenders, bulldozing through defenders. So they're McCollum. They, in my opinion, if they can just take care of those disciplinary things, those offsides, those personal fouls, those things that they shoot themselves in the foot with, I think you'd see a completely different win-loss record for the
well, we
Cowboys.
see them making great progress in that. The last two games have been very good examples. Many fewer mental errors. We visited with Coach Klon before the game, and he'll be the first to admit that in that Burbank game there were a couple of drives that they had been on schedule the whole game. They'd really done a great job moving the ball, and then there were a couple of drives where they just a couple of mental errors, a couple of penalties, and it put them behind the eight ball there in that game. And again, it's mental errors are going to come back and they're going to get you every time. And but we've seen a lot of progress there. You
Yeah,
talk about
definitely.
Justin Rodriguez. He's got some great targets over there at McCollum. Stephen Medina has caught some great passes at tight end. McAlexander, when he gets called, he's shown that he's a good blocker and he can also catch the ball too. But last week we saw a different twist. We saw a little different twist there. Luke Landa had come over from the defensive side. We've seen him do some damage, special teams, and we've seen him do a great job in that secondary. But Coach Clown brought him over to the offensive side, and he could be a weapon. I can see him really making a difference and adding just another dimension to that McCollum offense. So again, McCollum's still playing well. Looking forward to the game on Thursday at Alamo Stadium where they'll be playing Jefferson.
We'll get into this upcoming week in just a quick second, but let's talk about the standings right now before we transition into what's happening this week. Of course, we know that Alamo Heights undefeated in district right now, 6-0 after beating Harlandale this past week. Harlandale previously undefeated up until their matchup with the Alamo Heights Mules this past week, so they're sitting at 5-1, followed by Burbank 4-2, their next upcoming opponent, so that's going to be a big game. Highlands 4-2, Sam Houston 3-3 after beating the McCollum Cowboys. Brack 2-4, so is McCollum and Lanier. Then Edison and Jefferson are at 1-5. So at the very top, Alamo Heights, Harlandale, Burbank, and Highlands. Those teams are in a fight. Well, I would say Alamo Heights is got the 6-0 record right now, so they're going to probably be there at the top. But the fight for 2, 3, and 4 is what's going to be taking place here for the rest of the season.
Definitely, and we're going to start with this upcoming week. McCullum at Jeff, Burbank at Harlandale. We're streaming both of those. Highlands at Lanier, Brack at Sam Houston, and Alamo Heights at Alamo Stadium to play Edison in an afternoon game on Saturday. And that one's going to be with another station that we collaborate with. That one will be on KCWX TV, and
You'll be on.
I'll be doing color. Hector Ledesma will be doing the play-by-play on that 2:00 in the afternoon. But we'll get to that in just a minute. But as you said, Bobby, with the standings, Harlandale has beat Highlands already, and they're going to play Burbank this week. We're going to stream that one on Friday, and a victory over Burbank would give Harlandale a 2-game lead in for the second seed with only 2 games remaining. So that'd be tough. Harlandale would own victories over Burbank and Highlands, their 2 closest challengers, and that means that if you've tied, you go to head-to-head records. Then Harlandale would own the head-to-head record against Burbank and Highlands. So Harlandale really looking to it's a big game. It's for the second seed and going forward. It's a big game for Harlandale and Highlands. But at the standings, we look at as you said, you see Fourth place is at 4-2 in a 10-game district. A rule of thumb for me is 10-game district, 9, 8, 7, 6. 6 wins is going to pretty much get you in, but you don't necessarily need 6 wins. A 5-4 is possible. In a tie in certain configuration, you can get in with 5-4. And your target is 6. You're trying to get that 6th win because you're pretty sure to get in with 6. Very likely to get in with 6, but it's not impossible to get in with 5 wins. And I guess I'm going a little bit further down the standings there. Several teams: Brack 2-4, McCullum 2-4, Lanier 2-4, and 3 games left. Win out. Any of those teams win out, there's still a shot with the correct tie configuration that they can get in. So the season's not over. Brack has been really surprising. Lost the first 2, won the next one. Brack lost the first 4, then won the next 2, and they can still, they're a dark horse coming in around the turn to kind of far back there, but don't count them out. The big problem for Brack right now is they lost the game to Jefferson, and that one's going to be an owie. It's going to be really tough for them to overcome that loss, but they're still in the mix. 2-4 is still in the mix.
Coach, I know this is kind of way down the line. I know you always I'm always the first to bring it up, and you're always the first to kind of tell me, hey, wait a second. But of course, Frontier Bowl. But this is actually pretty valid because you're talking about winning out for McCullum or any of those teams that are sitting at that 2-4 record right now. So you talk about McCullum, in my opinion, has a good chance to win any of these upcoming 3 games, just making that Frontier Bowl much more possible if the McCullum Cowboys could happen to win out these next couple of games, and then all of a sudden the McCullum Cowboys would be possibly fighting for a playoff spot.
Well, this Frontier Bowl will be played at Southwest Legacy Stadium on a Saturday at 6:00, and that game's always interesting. But you're exactly right. McCullum winning the next 2 ball games would add more interest to that. But they've got Jefferson on Thursday that we're going to stream. Next week, we're going to stream as well. They've got a game against Brack, and that's, again, Brack needs to win out. McCullum needs to win out. That's a big one. And, of course, week 10. We'll talk about it when it's time, Bob.
When it's time, I know we'll talk plenty about it. But these are some interesting games. So if you're following this, I think you ask me, what team has the best chance? In my opinion, I look at McCullum, and just also for the mere fact of what you just mentioned earlier on the last few games, that each of these games that McCullum has lost, they've lost within, I think you said it was 5 points or so. So if they can really minimize or minimize their mistakes, I see no reason why the McCullum Cowboys can be in that spot. Finishing off the season here.
Well, I'm going to get ahead of myself a little bit too, Bobby. And, we're streaming that game and looking forward to McCullum and Brack. Talk about 2 good quarterbacks. Brandon Garcia, we saw what he could do against the Indians. The Indians outscored Brackenridge in that, but Brandon Garcia, boy, he's got wheels. And Justin, he's got a wing, and he's got some wheels. So we've seen him run as well. So that'll be a nice matchup. But again, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. I think we probably need to get to the shout outs before we run out of time here today.
For sure. And that's actually what's next. So, Coach, I'll let you do those shout outs for us.
All right. We first of all, there's Alamo Heights, as we said, 6-0 undefeated in district play, and they move up from 6 to 5 in the San Antonio Express News ranking. So up in not just in the top 10, but we've got a 14-5A D2 team in the top 5 in this area. So kudos to the Mules. Southwest, Annalise Castillo earned 1,000 digs. She's a libero back there. We saw her play in the match against Harlandale. So she's a senior. She's gotten to 1,000 digs. That's a lot of work, and congratulations, Annalise, on that. And speaking of the 1,000 threshold, South San's Angelina Munoz celebrated 1,000 assists for South San, and Angelina's a junior, so we'll see more of her next year. In the game that we streamed Tuesday, Harlandale at win, Natalie Garcia was our Tuesday night Nets player of the game, and she was a senior. It was senior night, so she got to celebrate that a little bit more with the player of the game selection, and Natalie Garcia has done a great job all year long and did a great job Tuesday. And then also, if you haven't visited our social media pages here recently, we'd like to call your attention to one of those pages. We've got it. It's on all three of them: Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. But we had a chance to visit with cross country champions, both of them from Southwest Legacy, Anthony Zapata and Alicia Galvez. We visited with them, and they gave us some real nice interviews. You'll really be happy to get to know them. Regina Pompa, a senior, who's she was the first athlete in at Southwest Legacy to ever earn a regional, ever make it to a regional anything in any sport, and that was Regina Pompa, a cross country runner for Southwest Legacy. She gained a regional berth as a freshman, and she's done it every year since. And we got to visit with her too. This was her last district cross country meet. And then finally, it's girls basketball is getting started. Girls basketball Wednesday is the first day, official day of after school practices for girls basketball. And we're so looking forward to that season. Next Wednesday, the boys will kick off their practices. But boy, you just gotta love basketball season.
All seasons, football, volleyball, basketball, and then when it's barely starting, even better. The transition, it brings that new life, right? We have this. Um, I wouldn't want to call it a fatigue, but it's certainly like it takes its toll. For you, coach, I know we've got Tuesday volleyball, we've got our podcast, we've got Thursday night football, Friday night football, and you got a Saturday football game. So this is such a great time of the year. We do go a good period of time that we get to rest up, but once we're done with that, it's time to
Boom,
to
boom,
get into
boom.
basketball.
Mhm.
So, all right, well, that was it for our podcast, and we thank you for joining us. So it was a lot of exciting stuff this past week. Just keep it right here with us. Go right ahead, coach.
Thursday night, we're again. We remind you, subscribe to our YouTube channel, RC Audio Sports YouTube channel. This Thursday, we're at Alamo Stadium for McCullum and Jefferson, and then Friday we're back at Harlandale Memorial Stadium. Burbank comes to visit. Both of them big games in the 14-5A D2 race, and we hope you're there for both of those two. And then before we VOD again, next Tuesday on our schedule, we have the McCullum Harlandale volleyball game, and you won't miss any of those if you'll subscribe to our RC Audio Sports YouTube channel. That's my
Yeah.
plug, Bob.
All right. Well, and also tune in to KCWX. Check out Coach, especially if you're following us for this district race. 28-5A. Coach will have Coach and Hector Ledesma will have it Alamo Heights at Edison. So you get to be at Alamo Heights, or excuse me, at Alamo Stadium a couple of times this week. So that's
Love
good
it.
for you, Coach. Well, all
Beautiful.
right. Well, say goodbye to all you. We appreciate you once again, and we'll see you Thursday. Have a good one.